Hey guys, Foxdrop here with a slightly different kind of video today. Today I want to talk to you about the ranked rewards controversy that has hit the league scene, where Lyte has claimed that anyone who has been punished in this system won't be eligible for the end of season ranked rewards. Now there have been two big differing opinions here about whether this is fair or whether this is not fair. And for this video, I just want to talk a bit about it, and I also want to give a more healthier outlook on the situation, because I don't really think people are looking at it from the perspective that they should be. I'm also going to be doing a slightly different form of video today, where I am not going to be scripting this. I know what I want to talk about, I've written it down, don't worry, I'm not just talking out my ass, not more than I usually do, I promise you. I want to keep it more natural, but hopefully I can keep things concise and clear. So, the first two opinions of this whole debacle is whether people think it's right or not, like I already said. Basically, it comes down to the punished players saying, this isn't fair, I've already been punished for this crime, why should I be punished again? And the people who it doesn't affect saying, well, you're toxic, who gives a shit, that's what you get for being a dickhead. None of these stances are good. But before we go into it, I do just want to talk about two things which I just want to kind of dispel some myths, I guess. The concept of delayed punishment really is not applicable to this kind of punishment. Delayed punishment is more applicable to things like when you're training a dog. It shits on the floor and then you scold it 2 days later. The dog isn't going to know what you're scolding it about, right? And for humans know, right? Even if you punish them 2 days later, they know what they're being punished for because you tell them about it. And it especially doesn't apply if you've already been punished in the past. So yeah, delayed punishment's nothing to do with this. And the second thing are people claiming that they got punished for no reason, you know, because they're on EU West and people don't like them. Yeah, I don't know. Unless there are some statistics to back that up, we have to assume that that just doesn't happen that frequently and that people are really a bit more toxic than they lead on, especially considering most of those players just conveniently happen to be Riven mains. Anyway, getting on with the conversation here. When you sign up to play League of Legends, you're essentially, by hitting that play button, you're agreeing by Riot's terms and conditions on how they want you to behave yourself in the game. I mean, literally, that's how it works, right? You sign up and agree to the summoner's code before you do anything in League. So if you break those rules, if you've agreed to, you know, not break them, and then you do break them, you're essentially agreeing to be punished. You're saying, okay, I deserve a punishment. But what it all comes down to is whether or not your punishment is proportionate to your crime. That's what it all comes down to in any justice system, right? Else it wouldn't make much sense. And likewise, in any justice system, there are 5 main purposes for punishments. The first is reformation. The second, deterrence. The third, retribution. The fourth, incapacitation or separation. And the last, restitution. Now, don't worry if you don't know what all of those means. I'm going to explain them moving on. And that's what we're going to do here, is we're going to see how this punishment, having your ranked rewards removed, is applicable to these 5 purposes of punishments. Because it's not just as black and white as, I've already been punished, I shouldn't be punished again. So firstly, reformation. This is the big one for Riot, right? This is the whole kind of ethos around Lyte's punishing system, is they want to make these toxic players better people. However, in my personal opinion, I don't really see how this removing the rewards is much of a reformation, because you kind of would say that if someone was going to learn their lesson, they probably would have done it once they received their first punishment. And if they kept reoffending, you would think that the punishment wasn't very effective for reformation. Would this help? Probably not. It would probably lead more towards the deterring things, but I'll talk about that later on. I want to talk about the incapacitation first, though, because this is another point where I don't think this punishment applies too much to this. Incapacitation or separation being removed from the community because you are seen as either a threat or a danger or something like that. And that doesn't apply to this, but it does apply to things like the low priority queues or being banned from the game. But like I say, not applicable to this Riot reward punishment. But the ways which this is applicable, the forms of punishment in which this is applicable, the reasons is justice, the retribution. Now there is a bit of a justice boner going on here, and that forms the whole argument of people saying, I don't care about whether you're getting your ranked rewards removed because you're a toxic player, who gives a shit. Now, despite these players being toxic players, they still deserve the right to be fairly punished, right? Just because they're knobheads doesn't mean that they should be thrown under the bus completely. They're still human beings after all. And there is a sense of justice, mostly because it's almost like a perceived justice, because there's not a lot of rewards in the League of Legends ecosystem, so to speak. The honor system is completely outdated. No one does that anymore. We got a mystery skin for being nice guys like a year ago, and like a Santa Baron icon, but outside of that, there isn't really any rewards for being a nice guy, apart from obviously that warm fuzzy feeling inside that you get when you don't wish someone to go kill themselves. So to that extent, if someone is going to be a knobhead, why would you want them to be rewarded? You wouldn't. So there is a bit of justice in that. Moving on to the deterrence, though, like I touched on earlier, in my opinion, this is the biggest one. This is the biggest reason why I think this is an effective punishment. Whether or not it's justified or not, I don't know, but it's effective. Because I think there is a problem nowadays in the League community that people don't care about the punishments they receive. If you get banned, you can just hop on a Smurf. If you get chat restricted, well, let's be honest, if you're a massive dickhead, you're not going to care too much about being chat restricted. It really doesn't matter. Do you really need more than 5 messages to tell your team they have cancer? Probably not. So if people don't care about the punishments that are being shot towards them, why would they care about changing their behavior to avoid the punishments? They're not going to care. They're not going to alter their behavior if the punishment that comes from that behavior isn't something they care about, right? They wouldn't do it. They're not going to do it. However, having a ranked rewards removed is a steeper punishment, and maybe it's time for some steeper punishments if the already existing ones aren't stopping people from reoffending. On top of that, the unseen punishment is the deadliest. If people don't know what their punishments will be, then maybe they'll reconsider their negative behavior because they don't know if it's going to be worth it in the long run. So to that extent, it's a pretty big deterrent if people care about keeping these end of season rewards, which, as it turns out, a lot of people do. But ultimately, like I said, it comes down to whether or not the punishment is proportionate to the crime. That's the important thing. Now, really, this all just comes down to personal opinion, and in my opinion, I think if you've been chat restricted once, it's pretty harsh to then be wiped off of the competitive map and just have all of your rewards removed. Especially when you consider the fact that Riot's whole punishment system is heavily based around reformation. So if you were a toxic player and you're no longer one, you're actually a success in their eyes. Why should you keep being punished for that? However, if you are a consistently negative person, if you're someone who reoffends, if you're someone who's received some harsher punishments, because let's be honest, you're a bad person, then why is it fair that you should be rewarded in the same sense that the people who are nice players get rewarded as well? It is also a fact that if you are breaking the summoner's code consistently, then Riot really doesn't want you playing their game. I mean, why would they? And ultimately, if you're breaking their summoner's code, that means you're being a bit of a knobhead, and by a bit of a knobhead, I mean a total wank stain. Probably means that the community doesn't want you here either. No one wants to play with those kind of players. We don't want you in the game. Why should you even be rewarded? Ultimately, it just comes down to what you think is a proportionate punishment. I mean, you just heard my opinion, so it's time for you to make up your own one. But I do think that the argument goes a little bit deeper than what we're seeing right now. Anyway, that's all I want to say on this topic, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in my next video.